Murie Zimbabwe, emergency broadcast, CAB3 stores, Parliament adjourned, courts mobilized, and the third term project is bleeding. Family, wake up and listen. When you see us dropping an emergency broadcast in the morning hours or Mascato Originellas, you already know something enormous has just happened. Something that the regime did not want you to find out about until they had already spun the narrative and buried the story under government press releases and propaganda. Well, too late. We are here, we are live, and we are telling you everything. The headline is simple and it is glorious. Emmerson Mnangagwa's desperate rush to bulldoze CAB3 through Parliament and seize a third term he has crashed into a wall. Parliament has been abruptly adjourned. The May 19th reading of the bill is dead. The courts are mobilizing. The war veterans are in the ring. And the man who was supposed to be untouchable is looking increasingly cornered. Let's break it all down, Zimbabwe. Parliament shut down. The bombshell dropped by an MP. Right. The confirmation came from inside the house itself. Opposition member of Parliament Gladys Hlachwayo took to X, formerly Twitter, and dropped the news that stopped the State House in its tracks. The legislature of Zimbabwe has been abruptly adjourned, not until next week, not until the end of the month, until Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. That means no first reading of CAB3 on May 19th. No theatrical parliamentary session designed to rubber stamp Mnangagwa's third term project in front of supermajority that was always going to vote yes. The stage that was being set, the curtain has been pulled down. And when pressed by citizens demanding clarity on whether June 2nd means the bill gets finalized, Hlachwayo was clear. June 2nd is merely the earliest possible date the first reading could even take place. Deep insiders are already whispering that the real timeline is being pushed further, possibly June 5th, possibly June 8th. Every single day of delay matters enormously. Here's why. Formal legislative processes, including committee review and voting, will take place on or after May 16, 2026. With exact timing depending on Parliament's schedule. The regime built its entire momentum around moving fast, getting CAB3 through before legal challenges could crystallize, before public opposition could organize, and before the constitutional clock could work against them. Speed was their weapon, and right now in Zimbabwe, that weapon has been knocked out of their hand. The courts are open and May 20th is the date to circle. Here is the strategic masterstroke that the Parliament adjournment has accidentally, or perhaps not so accidentally, delivered to the forces opposing CAB3. With Parliament locked up and unable to move, the courts now have breathing room, and Zimbabwe's courts are about to be asked the most important constitutional question this country has faced in a generation. The Constitutional Court has set May 20th as the date of the hearing of a high-stakes case in which a group of war veterans, represented by lawyer Professor Love Momaduku, is seeking to block the proposed constitutional amendments. A 7-member Constitutional Court bench will hear the matter. 7 judges, 7 of Zimbabwe's most senior judicial minds, sitting to hear arguments that go to the very heart of the Constitution. The 6 applicants, Ruben Zulu, Godfrey Gurira, Shourai Nyamangodo, Joseph Chinyangare, Digmo Knowledge Ndia, and Joseph Chingua, accuse Mnangagwa of breaching constitutional provisions by presiding over cabinet deliberations on reforms from which they say he stands to benefit personally. They argue that a president cannot chair a cabinet meeting to approve a bill that extends his own term. This is not a minor procedural complaint. That is a fundamental constitutional conflict of interest that, if upheld, would void the entire cabinet approval of CAB3 at its root. The relief they are seeking includes a declaration that the president acted unconstitutionally, nullification of cabinet approval, and the interdict preventing Mnangagwa from signing or advancing the legislation. And then there is Prince Dube Kosvanda, the former CCC legislator, who is fighting this battle in his personal capacity as a Zimbabwean citizen and a registered voter. Sibanda is seeking a declaration that the clause extending the presidential term is inconsistent with Section 328(7) of the Constitution and wants Parliament barred from advancing the contested provisions, arguing that the legislature shall not present, process, debate, vote upon, or otherwise proceed with the bill insofar as it concerns those clauses. Right. Two simultaneous legal battles, Zimbabwe. One targeting the president's conflict of interest in approving the bill, the other targeting the specific clauses that extend his term, both now set for May 20th, the very day after the original parliamentary reading was supposed to happen. If Parliament had rushed through on May 19th, these cases would have been racing against a moving train. Now, with Parliament adjourned until June, the courts have cleared air to rule before the politicians can act. That is not a coincidence. That is strategy. Professor Maduku delivers his verdict, and it is devastating. Right? Maduku is not a man who speaks carelessly. He is one of Zimbabwe's foremost constitutional law minds, the man who has spent decades studying, teaching, and fighting for the supreme law of this land. And when Maduku speaks about CAB3, he speaks with the authority of someone who has read every clause, understood every implication, and worked out every legal angle. His message this week: he insists there is no way Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 will escape a referendum, even before what he calls captured courts, which he says cannot be persuaded to go below the minimum in their adjudication standards. Even macourts akatengwa chayo chayo haasi kuzogona kuti ati bill number 3 ripase pasina kuenda kureferendum. It's almost impossible because it's so obvious. Right. The good news for Zimbabweans is that we will get a referendum on this one. Ndi Maduku. They will avoid it, but for once the courts here will order a referendum. Maduku said, a referendum is a compromise. The courts must remain courts. They know that they can be abused by what they are doing, but there is a limit to which you can make the courts become not courts. Hear that, Zimbabwe. Even a man who acknowledges that Zimbabwe's courts have been compromised, captured courts, his own words, is still saying the law is so clear on the referendum requirement that no judge can twist their way around it without destroying the last shred of judicial legitimacy in this country. Under the current constitutional provisions, particularly Section 328, an amendment that extends an incumbent term will require a referendum to allow the people to have a say by way of a secret ballot. Section 328 establishes a two-track system. The first track allows for standard amendments passed by Parliament with a 2/3 majority. The second track, triggered when an amendment would extend the term of an incumbent president, requires a national referendum. Mnangagwa knows he cannot win a referendum. His own camp knows it. The region knows it. And now the courts are being asked to enforce the one constitutional mechanism that the entire CAB3 project was designed to avoid. The war of opposition. Everyone is saying no. Let us take stock of who is standing against CAB3 right now. Because it is not just the usual opposition voices. It is not just civil society. The coalition that is assembled against this bill is the broadest, most institutionally credible opposition to any government action in Zimbabwe's post-independence history. The Zimbabwe Catholic Bishops' Conference, signed by all 7 bishops, including both archbishops of Harare and Bulawayo, has filed a sweeping rejection of CAB3, warning that the bill erodes democratic safeguards, weakens institutional independence, and undermines the sovereign will of the people. The Law Society of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, and the Zimbabwe heads of Christian denominations have all raised formal objections. War veterans, the liberation struggle heroes whose sacrifice built this nation, are in the Constitutional Court arguing that their president broke the Constitution to extend his own rule. Mnangagwa waifunga kuti vanhu vanane here waifunge achipinzira chonechi waifunga kuti vanakadhakwa here muri Zimbabwe. And outside the country's borders, the National Democracy Working Group petitioned the African Union to suspend Zimbabwe as soon as CAB3 was announced. accusing Parliament of orchestrating a coup in motion by attempting to extend Mnangagwa's term. Right, the church, the Law Society, the Human Rights Commission, the war veterans, the African Union petitioners, civil society, retired generals, the courts, and now Parliament itself adjourned before it could even begin. This is what a government losing its grip looks like. Right, let's talk about SADC breathes down Harare's neck. SADC good femera muhuro. The pressure is not only domestic. As we have reported extensively on this channel, Zimbabwe, the regional body is watching Zimbabwe with an intensity that cannot be ignored. When Cyril Ramaphosa flew to Mnangagwa's farm in Kwekwe on May 3rd, the visit that was dressed up as an agricultural excursion, the real message was political and it was firm. The region will not tolerate another constitutional crisis that destabilizes Southern Africa. South Africa, which is heading into its own local government elections in November, cannot afford a wave of Zimbabwean refugees crossing the Limpopo because a president decided to rewrite his country's constitution at midnight in Moscow. The political calculus is cold and clear. Pretoria has its own interests, and those interests right now align with the constitutional order in Harare. The pressure is real. The adjournment did not happen in a vacuum. When a government that was racing to push a bill through suddenly pumps the brakes, something changed the calculation. And the forces that changed that calculation, military pressure, regional diplomacy, legal challenges, and a citizenry that refused to be silenced, deserve to be recognized for what they are. The defenders of Zimbabwe's constitution winning a battle. Not the war yet, but a battle. And battles matter, Zimbabwe. Before we close, we cannot live without speaking about a brother who is still paying the price for standing on the right side of this fight. The court appearance for Mabunu in Johannesburg has been postponed again. He remains behind bars over a year in a South African jail, not because of a crime, because of his allegiance to General Chiwenga, because the Mnangagwa faction decided that loyalty to the wrong man was a punishable offense, and they used every instrument at their disposal to keep him locked up and silenced. Mabunu's courage in testifying, in going on the stand and naming his persecution for what it is the courage of a man who refuses to be broken. In the Panapa Mzinda Wevan, we refuse to stop saying his name until he walks free. Right, the bottom line, CAB3 is bleeding, but is not dead yet. Family, let us be honest with you, because that is what we do on this channel. CAB3 has been delayed. It has not been defeated. It remains almost certain that Zimbabwe will pass CAB3 within the next few weeks. ZANU-PF still has its parliamentary supermajority. The ruling party machinery is still grinding, and Mnangagwa, wherever he is, whatever deal he has just cut in Moscow and Minsk, has not surrendered. But the delay is real, the legal challenges are real, the court dates are real, the constitutional argument is strong, and the coalition of forces pushing back inside the military, inside the judiciary, inside the civil society, from the from the pulpits, from the war veterans, from the region, is larger and more credible than anything that has challenged the Zimbabwean government in decades. The fight is not over. It has just entered its most decisive phase. The courts open on May 20th. Parliament reopens June 2nd at the earliest, and the Panapa Mzinda Wevan will be here every single delay in between, making sure Zimbabwe knows exactly what is happening in its name. Stay vigilant, stay informed, stay tuned, stay loud. Subscribe to the Mtapa Times Panapa Mzinda Wevan on YouTube or Inside Africa Network on Facebook, the channel that never flinches. Do you think the courts will stop CAB3? Is the adjournment a genuine retreat or just a tactical pause? Drop your most honest take in the comments below. Smash that like button. Share this broadcast everywhere and support independent journalism through the join and super thanks buttons. Zimbabwe's constitution needs your voice right now. Use it. Thank you for watching.